Alrighty, so I believe the stream has already started up. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry about the confusion yesterday. So, the uh, I missed the alarm, so as a result, the class was not able to start up. So that should never happen again. So I made the precautions so that we make sure that we'd be on time. This is entirely my fault, not the team's fault. Um, So again, I'm very sorry. But without further ado, essentially, what is going to happen in this class is we're just going to be going over the string section in the coding bat. So once again, if you want to go to the website, all you need to do is go to codingbat.com and it will bring you to the website and you'll have to log in. So I'm already logged in, and so you should have already probably followed these steps before in the previous classes. And we've already done warm up 1, we've done warm up 2, so now we're going to be moving on to string 1. So all you need to do is click on it and you can see there's all these questions over here. So the questions that we are going to be doing in this class are the first 6 questions. So hello name, make ABBA, make tags, make outward, extra end, and first 2. So if you've already done those, you can go ahead and open it up if you want. And if you haven't done those questions, then either follow along and do it as we're teaching, or you can just go ahead and listen. Whatever you think is going to allow you to learn the material most productively, that is how you should do it. And so I guess let's go ahead and get started. So the first question we're going to be doing is going to be hello name. So let's go ahead and open that up. Should be here. So, um, Daniel can go ahead and teach now.
Okay, so this question is in a string name, as an example, return a greeting of the form hello Bob. So what we kind of want to do here is combine the 3 strings hello and Bob and the exclamation mark. So what we can do is like return hello and space, and then we can add strings together. So over here you would have name, and name is basically whatever is over here. So if you were using this example, you would have hello plus Alice plus an exclamation mark. And over here, it would be the same. It's an X, so it would say hello plus X plus exclamation mark. As you can see, it works. And one thing you should note is that you can add strings together, and like you can add integers together, but you can't like add strings and integers together. So you couldn't have like hello plus 1 plus exclamation mark unless 1 was a string. But if it wasn't, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay, so next we will be moving on to the question make ABBA. And this is going to be taught by Pranav.
So we got problem 2 of string level 1 here, make ABBA. I'll give you some time to read the instructions yourself. Okay, so it says given two strings A and B, return the result of putting them together in the order A, B, B, A. So an example, hi and bye returns hi, bye, bye, hi with the pattern A, B, B, A. So basically, they give you two different words and they are labeled A and B. You just have to put the words in a certain order. Um, the order that it should be put in is A, B, B, A. So for example, with the two words hi and bye, the A, B, B, A pattern will be hi, bye, bye, hi. I think you get the gist of it. So there are more examples down here with the yo, Alice, and what, and So on this problem, there is no solution here because it's relatively easy. So they decided to give a hint. So obviously you should use this hint when you're confused or stuck. So they define the function make a b b a for us with two arguments, a and b, which were mentioned before. So a is the first string and b is the second string that they give. So if we want to return the first word, we would just say return a. But here we have to use the pattern A, B, B, A. So we would say return A followed by B, then B, and A. But then how would we connect these strings together, like in this example here? So that's where the addition sign comes in. So we would put the addition signs when we want to have no spaces in between these strings and we want them connected. So if you look here, we have return A plus B plus B plus A. And that's exactly the pattern that I asked you to do. And we get everything correct.
Alright, so we have just finished question 2, make ABBA. So, as we could tell by the question, that is kind of the pattern that we needed to follow. So now we're going to be going on to make tags. So make tags is going to be slightly more complicated than the last ones. So I'll give you guys a little while to look at this. So just keep in mind that these like special characters, they don't mean anything special, they're just part of a string. Alright, so now that you guys have had some time to look at this, so we're going to go over the key parts of the instruction. So, as we know, this is going to be focused on strings, right? So there's a bunch of these strings that we're going to see in here. This string we have here, here, and we have the example over here. So the web is built with HTML strings, like blah blah blah, which draws yay as italics, right? So essentially what this means is when we go onto a website, say we go onto just CodingBat, right? So we open up a new CodingBat window, and we see a bunch of text, we see a bunch of boxes, right? Essentially what HTML is it's a language that allows you to kind of draw out and define this website. So behind every single one of these, if you guys aren't familiar with the command, Control Shift I, and so that will kind of bring you up with a bunch of this weird code right here that you may not recognize, and that's because this is all in HTML, right? So as you can see over here, not doc type HTML means that essentially this is commented out because it tells you which language that this website uses. And you can see that there's all this code that allows you to define, like over here, this is the code to define that. So essentially, that's kind of the background of the code of what this is trying to allow you to print. So it's kind of funny because essentially what this Python program is doing is it's printing or writing an HTML code for you. So HTML is a rather standardized language, and what I mean by that is the kind of code that you write, there's always going to be some sort of format, right? So in this case, the special format is going to be including these kind of left and right arrows. And so on top of these left and right arrows, you're going to want to have this slash over here. So what's so special about these? Well, we have kind of two different conditions, right? So we have make tags, and we also have um, the two parameters, tag and word, right? So this is what's given to you. So in tag and word, we need to see what are we going to do with these two. So all we have to do is go back and look at these examples over here, right? So we have I, and we can see that the I gets put in between the two different arrows, right? And then we have yay, and the string yay is going to be put in between these kind of two left-right arrow structures. And in order to kind of end the italics, there's going to be a slash and then I again, right? Except the slash appears in every single one of these, which means that it's not going to be part of the tag, right? So the only things that are going to be that we're going to be adding onto it is essentially the left and right arrows and this slash over here. So all we need to do is this is just going to be a very simple one-line piece of code. So first we're going to write return, because after all, in order for us to properly write this, we need to return something, right? And so we're going to write the string over here, oops, like that. So that's going to be the arrow pointing left, and so we're going to need to add the tag and then add the arrow pointing right. So that will let us write this over here, and then we need to add the word, and then finally we're just going to repeat the same thing except on the other side, and we can write it like that. So that is essentially what's going to be the kind of code, what your code is supposed to look like. So there's no really way to simplify this, as it's already in its simplest form possible. So just go ahead and look at this and make sure that you understand this. This is all just very basic strings, just adding variables and strings together. And so I'll go ahead and run it, and you can see that it passes every single one of the cases. Now it's important, especially when you get to the more complicated programs, that you go ahead and you look at the solutions as well. And when you check the solutions, you need to make sure that the solutions all make sense to you. And so many times the runs will give you kind of twist cases or special cases, and sometimes your program may account for it even though you might not have even tried to account for it, right? So it's always important to make sure you look through all of these kind of runs and make sure that they all make sense. So I'll let you guys look at the solution and the runs for a second. So now that you guys have kind of looked at all this, so we're gonna go back to string one, and then we just finished make tags. So next question is going to be make out word. So Pranav is going to be teaching this one. So I guess we can let him go ahead and present. All right.
Okay, so here we got make out word. So take some time to read the instructions. Okay, so it says given an out, string length 4, such as, then it gives some code here, and a word, return a new string where the word is in the middle of the out string. So the example is like this. So this means that if you're given a string, you're given a string called out, which has a length of 4, and a word. You're supposed to return a new string where the word is inside of the out, with 2 characters on each side of the word. For example, if the out here is 2 brackets, 2 left brackets here and 2 right brackets, and the word is word. So you see here that half of the out is on the left side of word and half of the out is on the right side. So here, make out word was defined for you with the 2 arguments out and word. So in this situation, we would use something called an index. An index is the position of that character. So if you would look back at this example in this out, this first bracket would be the position in position of 0. This would be 1. This would be 2. This would be 3. So they all have a position. It starts from 0. It doesn't start from 1. So here we would want to return index of 0, 0 and 1, because that's the left half of the out. And then we would want to connect it to the word. And then lastly, we will want to add the rest of the out, or index 3 and 4. I mean 2, 2 and 3, sorry. So we would put return out index 0 through 2 here. So that means from 0 all the way up to 2, but not including 2. So that would include 0 and 1. And then we would add the word. And lastly, we put out index 2 through 4. So what I said before, this means index 2 and 3, but not including 4. And when we click go, we would get everything correct.
So now let's move back so we can go to the next question. So the next question is going to be extra end. So why don't you guys kind of look at the instructions for a second. Alright, so now that you guys have had some time to look at the instructions, again, we're going to be going over the important parts of it. So, given a string, return a new string made of 3 copies of the last 2 cars or characters of the original string. Right, so the important thing is we need to return a string. So we know that, and we need 3 copies, not just 1, but 3 of the last 2 characters of the original string. And so the string length will be at least 2. So what does this mean? So essentially, we know that it will return a new string that contains only the last 2 characters, except 3 copies of the last 2 characters. And what it means by the string length will be at least 2 is that the original string, the string that they give you, right, say hello or AB or hi, the length will be at least 2. So essentially this is going to be what the outcomes are going to look like. So we need to make sure we keep all the capitalization and stuff. So we can see we take the last two L and O and we just repeat it 3 times. And so this happens for every single one of these. Right? So I'll let you guys think of how you would program this yourselves first, and then I'll go ahead and kind of show you how it's supposed to go. Alright, so now that you guys have had some time to look at it, so we're going to need to define a string, and that string is going to be what we're going to use to kind of return it in the end, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to define, say, we're going to name it string, okay? Oops, it needs to be indented, that is important. And so we're going to need to do the original string, right? And so we're going to need to make sure that we catch the right indexes. So what's going to happen is instead of us starting from the beginning index, like it would be for many other examples, we're actually going to be starting from the end, right? So how we're going to make sure that we grab the end ones is going to be, we're going to go ahead and type len string, right, -2. So that's going to go to the very, very end, and then just subtract 2 indexes, right? And we're going to go all the way to the index of the end, right? So the reason why we put the end instead of the end -1 is because, again, as Pranav said, it does not catch this last index over here. So that is going to be the first line of code, right? So now that we kind of have, okay, well, this is the last 2 characters, we can just do string 3 times, right? So that is going to give us a correct solution. However, there are some ways we can simplify this, right? So first of all, if we remembered before, we can just go ahead and do string times 3, and that will also give us the correct answer. Now you may be wondering, wait, string isn't a number, it's a string, right? But since this is Python, that means that when we multiply a string by a certain number, it will just repeat that number over and over again over however many times we multiplied it. So that's how we get the 3 repetitions of the same string over here. But there's another way we can go ahead and simplify this. So if you look carefully, right, over here, this seems a bit complicated, right? If we just want to grab the last 2 characters, there has to be a way that Python knew, okay, well, these students wanted to simplify this in some way. So essentially what we can do is we can just go ahead and do this. So just look at this for a second and think, why can I do this? Alright, so the reason why we can do this is the index inside this kind of brackets over here, they can go either positive or negative. And when they go negative, they start from the very end. And in this case, when we don't have anything on the other side of the colon, it will just automatically fill it in as going to the very end of the word, right? So if we run it, we still get all correct answers. So this is important because this can help us simplify our code, and being able to just go negative and start from the back is very, very useful sometimes. Right, so I'll let you look at this for a second and kind of soak in how this kind of works, because it can look confusing at first because it's not as intuitive as if we programmed out the entire thing ourselves. Alright, so now that you guys have looked at this, we can actually go ahead and simplify this one more time. And so I'm sure some of you guys have seen this already, but essentially we can just go ahead and copy this, and we can just delete this line. We can come here, we can put this into parentheses, and we can just do that. So this further simplifies this entire program into a singular line, right? Now, I do not recommend you go ahead and do this, as many times you want to use this kind of expression later on in the program. And it's nearly always better to kind of store the value, because you may not know when it may come in handy, right? So, again, this is completely up to you, but it's often good practice to not kind of oversimplify, because oversimplifying can make it also confusing. So, you can go ahead and you can see that their solution is going to be this. And so you can see that they implemented some of the things that we used to simplify, like this portion over here. But again, this solution that they give is not always the most simple. For example, they just typed out end plus end plus end, right? Except you can just go ahead and multiply by 3. So, next question. First 2. So go ahead and look at this for yourselves, and make sure you read over the instructions and all the cases over here. Alright, so now that you guys have had a good look at this, we are going to go over the important parts of the instruction. So, given a string, return the string made of its first 2 characters. So last time it was the last 2, but this time we're on to the first 2. So the string hello yields HE, right? So this is the example that they give. And if the string is shorter than length 2, return whatever there is. So X would just print out X, and the empty string just prints out the empty string. So this is almost picture perfect for an if statement, right? It literally tells us if, right? So remember, whenever we're reading instructions, we gotta look for those keywords. So all these cases, we can just kind of look at them. They're all pretty basic cases, nothing too special about them. They don't even give us actually the short cases, except for in the instructions, obviously. Alright, so we can look, okay, well, there's only going to be one parameter. And so we know that this is actually going to be an if statement. So we might as well just go ahead and type out the basics of this if statement. Right, so we're obviously going to have a, we're going to have a condition here. And so what exactly is this condition going to be? Well, the condition that we're going to get is if len string, right? So this is capturing the length of the string, is less than or equal to 2, then blah blah blah. And it'll print out the first 2, right? Except this less than or equal to can also be less than. And the reason for this is because even if it's less than 2, right, it will still be able to just print whatever else there is, right, in case there's 0 or 1 characters. But in the case that there are 2 characters, if we have the less than or equal to, right, then that means that it will just go ahead and it will print out the string and nothing will happen to it. But if we do this and the length of the string is equal to 2, then it will go ahead and it will just print out the first 2 characters, or all of the characters. Now in this case, we don't want the computer to work harder than it has to, as this will actually allow it to do less work, even if it's just slightly. So that is going to be what our if statement looks like. So now that we have this, we are going to go ahead and we're going to return something here, and we're going to return something here. So what exactly are we going to return? Well, over here, when length of string is less than or equal to 2, all we have to do is just return string, right? And over here, in the else statement, which is if the length of string is greater than 2, what we're going to do is we're going to return the string at indexes 0 all the way to 2. So in this case, all we have to do is type this, because if you don't put anything here, it will assume index 0. So we can go ahead and run it, and we can see that the solution is correct. So now that we've kind of seen, okay, this is the basics of how we can access indexes in a string, and we even managed to use an if statement in this, right? So this is a little more complicated than the last one, so I'll let you take a good look at this, and make sure you look at all the cases. Alright, so now that you guys have had a good look at this, as you can see, there's nothing too complicated about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up their solution. So it's pretty similar to ours, except they essentially flip the if statement. So you can go ahead and look at that. So obviously this means that there's two different ways to do it. And so this will kind of wrap up the questions for today. So the homework is going to be essentially finishing the rest of string 1, and next class we're going to be moving on to list 1. So if you want to, you can go ahead and just practice list 1 as well. And if anyone has any questions, just go ahead and put them in chat right now, I guess, and we'll try to answer them. Alright, it doesn't look like there are any questions. So see you guys. Again, I'm very sorry I missed yesterday's class. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. Thank you, everyone.